All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zil. Welcome to 2025. We're very happy to be back after our wonderful escapades in Chicago at MFF. It has been negative some shit in Toronto, and I am sick and tired of the air hurting my face. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host K-Libra. How are you doing, K-Libra?
As best as I can. I love the cold air beating my face. I know that now. Beating off in my face the cold air. Get that gay joke in. But I guess I would have
I
to
feel
be gay
represented.
because now good, because I'm legally a woman now in the United States. Isn't that awesome?
Oh, wow. When did that
Yeah,
happen?
it happened when a new administration took hold and decided that apparently female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. A male means person belonging to conception and sex produces a small reproductive cell. And for anybody that's not aware, scientifically, at that stage in our development, we are indistinguishable from a female until we get the hormone washes. Because remember, we're chicks by default, and I guess I am still a chick. So, hi everybody, I'm a question mark trans, I guess. But, I wish everybody in America was a patron, because if they gave us just like $2 a day or something like that.
A day?
Not a day, a month. Yeah, why not a day? Give us $2 a day. It's just like people pay like for fucking Netflix and they don't even get consistent quality or service. But you can give us like $5 a month or something like that. Everybody in the U.S. I was like, how many millions? How many hundreds of millions of people? It's just $5, bitch.
So is that our pitch to get $1 million every month for the podcast?
Step into the darkness with me, people.
Yes,
Come on.
It's all terrible. Anyways, it's not great up in Canada either, for the record, but it is better, at least by relative comparison. Anyways, we're excited to have a special guest with us today. So OtherSide, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, yes, I can. So, hello, my name is OtherSide, and I don't know how else to say. I am an artist. In the TF community, I'm also known as a TF artist. I do mostly transformation art involving people being turned into hybrid creatures. I'm also an animator who does TF animations. I do 3D animation. I do memes about the animation. I also do non-TF art for my free time, and I have also a job in animation at the same time. And also I'm existing. So that's a way to introduce myself.
Yeah,
I have so much, I don't know how else to say.
I think that's a pretty comprehensive introduction. I guess one of the things I was, keen to chat with you first off is actually a lot of your art output, and in particular, a lot of it is focused on like creating Demi TF, which we've talked about on the show before, but I always find that everyone has like a different draw to it specifically. So I was curious to hear a little bit more about what it is about Demi TF that you find uniquely appealing, and, if you find creating it is something that's particularly rewarding or challenging.
Well, let's start with the appeal of Demi TF. So the context, what I like in a TF is how much of a body is TF or changed compared to its original human aspect. So sometimes when you see, for example, when you see a dragon TF with a long neck, so you mostly expect, for example, to see the neck of a human elongating.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to see is the anatomy for how much of this has to stretch to reach a specific form.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what they do in TF art is that they stretch the neck of a human and then add the scales. Now, what I do like sometimes is, what if we don't put the scales? What if the final human form is basically a human shaped like an animal, or an animal shaped human?
Mm-hmm.
Demi TF is basically that. Imagine if the human is basically molded into a different shape, either be a dragon or a rooster or a bull, it's as if there's some kind of humanity. So my appeal is the contrast between the contrast between the human and an animal.
That makes sense to me.
Is the appeal. And what is again the other question?
Oh,
the other part of the question?
Well, I think Libra, you had something you wanted to say first.
Well, I was going to say that I can see the appeal in that because I like transformations that really contrast the human form. So I do appreciate that sort of framing, because I mean, one of the definitions I heard, which I think makes it really boring, is just an animal but with human skin, and that's fine, I guess. But I mean, if you could just, I guess you could just put Nair on anything, or just like have a skin iguana, but that's not inherently interesting to me. You know, it could be freaky, but it doesn't really get that interesting with, like, I don't know. It's missed potential. I like this premise of like trying to force a human shape into being something else. I have seen that kind of concept done, but I don't think it's really explored through that kind of lens, which is one of the reasons that I also like the stuff that you make.
Thank you. Well, that is actually one challenge for doing, for my taste, Demi TF. One of the biggest challenge is exactly that, avoiding that is just an animal, but in 3D, it's a creature, but we replace the texture instead of a creature scale, and we replace it with a human texture without doing anything. And to me, it sounds like it doesn't look as a TF. One of the other challenges then is to make that is the challenge, is avoiding it basically like this, avoiding looking like a texture mod on a video game.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
one of the things to avoid this is, for example, imagine if let's take for example the human head. Imagine how it would look a 90% or almost TF'd. Imagine a human head TF'd into, let's say, a dog, but it's almost finished, but not quite. And then just don't put the fur. Sometimes there are details like the shape of the nostrils, the shape of the nostrils, the bone structures for the eyebrows, and sometimes the shape of the jawline. Humans have different facial features, so try to put those details into basically the proportions or the placement of a dog, for example.
right.
Some people have, for example, a bigger nose. Try to implement this in let's say, a Labrador, for example. Some people have different noses. Some people have wider noses. They have bigger nostrils. Sometimes they don't have noses. Try to implement this on a dog, for example, and try to blend it to avoid, as if it's just put here on, like try to avoid I don't know how to say. You need to place like blend it, combine it with the shape of a dog, basically, without looking like it's blasted like a picture.
Right, I understand that. What I do wonder is how does this specific thing end up hooking you? Because everybody's got a little thing, a little appealing thing, a curiosity, something that they just kind of want to, well, I think like you see something and you want to make your own version.
Yeah.
So that happens to a lot of people, and that's what I do. So you're not the only one who does this, obviously, but I don't really see a lot of things that kind of hit that sort of mark. I feel like I've seen some media where you get that sort of effect, but it's just kind of like glossed over. It's not really focused on, but it sticks to you. So, what was it that you saw that made you want to make this kind of stuff regularly? And also, like what's like the appeal is the blended anatomy. So what hit that for you? Was it an artist? Was it a piece of it's a TV show, like a description?
What hit me the idea of this kind of TF? This is very hard to complicated to say, because it's basically it. First of all, when I look at TF sequences, sorry for the background. There's when I see TF sequences on DeviantArt or for Affinity, I don't imagine the TF as is transforming. I see it as it's static because that's how it is. That's how it is. I don't see. Sometimes I don't imagine. For example, I don't imagine when I see a muzzle growth picture. Sometimes I don't imagine what happens after. I only see the static moment of the exact second, and sometimes it feels as if it's paused because that's what art do. It's a static image. Let's see if I have an example of a drawing. Okay, TF artist.
So if I can maybe try to distill that, it's almost like the appeal is that because a lot of your exposure to transformation art has been through these sorts of like static images, that's the kind of frozen in the moment change that you think of when you think of transformation, and Demi TF aligns more closely with that than say other kinds of TF.
Exactly. For example, I put an example from Rex Equinox page 2. When you look in the middle of the image, it's a T-Rex TF. I look at the center of the image, and I look at how there is human skin, but sometimes I can see the ears. It seems like I could imagine it as if, what if it's stuck like this? I remember seeing some artists, for example, on DeviantArt that has I don't remember exactly the name, but I remember that it has an idea of a shapeshifter, but it's stuck mid-form. And it's a series of drawings of the creature. We see the human features, and I like this image, and I wanted to see a bit more. And when I look, for example, I remember watching I remember typing dog transformation on Google, and I remember the first TF video it was in Spanish. It's a woman's face TFing into a dog, and I want this kind of liminal mid TF, and and sometimes I pause it frame by frame, and it is so strange, but at the same time I don't know, sometimes love the uncanniness of it, and what if it was like the final form? And that is the idea of Demi TF, but basically if it was its own, quote unquote genre.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. It's like basically every potential image could be actually the final image, and that's what you're kind of trying to embody when you're creating your Demi TFs.
Yeah, exactly. So when I do a Demi TF, like, it's as if sometimes it feels as if the TF, there is a kind of a pressure when the character is stuck mid TF. Sometimes I feel like it feels as if it's going to TF further, but there is some kind of roadblock that stops it from continuing, and sometimes it feels as if it's both transforming, but not at the same time. So it's as if it's a mid TF, a post TF mid TF combination.
No, that makes sense to me. Do you find that, like, when it comes to like creating Demi TF and like creating images in the way that you described, is creating TF images as Demi TFs something that you find difficult to do, or is it in fact an easier or more like default way of making art for you?
Well, sometimes it is easy and not at the same time. Sometimes I find it kind of easy for me because I've been doing Demi TF art since 6 years, but I can sometimes find some difficulties regarding specific requirements, like that I can recognize, but I already find it easy now. For example, you need to look. Do you want some examples?
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, I need to be sure to. I just need to see the exact details of the specific human face. Like sometimes not every human are shaped equally. I mean, not every human have the same kind of face, and I like to put this kind of thing on Demi TF. And I already know that Demi TF is basically, I just imagined the final form, if it was not Demi TF, and then facility. It is a bit easy for me, but still need to make sure that those details are visible.
Yeah.
It could be a single thing. It could be as simple as changing 2 strokes, or breaking a line and the character is different. So in conclusion, I can say that the difficulty is the subtlety, because TLDR, the difficulty is that not drawing human faces is very subtle, and one detail can break the TF, can break the Demi TF.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. I like knowing that somebody's able to look at people that way for the variety that we actually have. Because, yes, we actually do come in a lot of really distinct shapes. I remember when I was walking with Proxer downtown, and she looked ahead at somebody, and she's like, "That guy is a perfect square." And he really did look like a fucking walking square. And she was just enamored, like, I can't believe the way this guy is shaped. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, exactly. And when I think about it, that's a good thing. It's interesting. Actually, it is something that when I was in college for character design, for animation, we did what we call caricatures, which is just exaggerate the features, exaggerate the nose, exaggerate the front, exaggerate the nose, or the eyes. So character design in animation helped me doing Demi TF art easier, but it's also a fun challenge to see what sticks out as a human, basically. So in a way, it kind of reinforces their humanity in human shape.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The remnants and stuff like that. I think when like Hunger Games had like a sort of thing going on like that in the books, they would turn some of the people into monsters, but you could tell who they were because some of their features remained on their faces. Yeah, shit like that. There's a lot of potential in screwing with people's minds when you do that sort of thing, and it can be great for all kinds of things. It can be endearing, it could be horrific, it can just be fun, it can be uncanny. And yes, but that only really comes if you start to recognize the effects that people's facial features can have on other people. Kind of an empathy thing in a way sometimes.
Yeah, probably. Actually, not probably, definitely.
Now, I guess one of the other things I think about a lot is the fact that Demi TF, it's a very unique visual aesthetic, and for some people, it can be particularly uncanny. And I guess, I was curious when you approach this kind of art, you've kind of described what the appeal is, but when it goes to actually like creating the image, how do you try to like bridge the gap between the uncanny and the visual appealing?
Or do you even care?
Yeah.
I embrace the uncanniness. I embrace it.
Okay.
That here's an idea. Context matters. When I make one of my characters that I do, if you look at my gallery, there's a character called Jake, which is half human, half rooster. And basically I drew him in badass poses and badasses, in some extreme expressions.
Yeah.
Sometimes let me see if I have some of my work. Not yet. Let me look at my for affinity. But basically, I try to make it. The idea is, this person may be very changed, but he's still a nice person. So sometimes I embrace the uncanniness, but I use the context. For example, when I drew this picture in the session recording chat, normally I mostly care about how he feels. I don't care that much about how he looks. Sometimes I want to emphasize how he feels, how cocky he is, how he struts, and the idea is exactly that. There is an uncanniness, but in spite of it, there is an appeal. Context matters.
Right.
Also, stylization. I try to have some kind of a quote-unquote cartoonish. I try to simplify some details. For example, if I did it in 3D in a hyper-realistic style, like let's say Griff or Griff, or maybe another, or White Flame K, it's probably going to freak out some people, even with that expression. But I could get away with it because, one, it's cel animated art style, like some Disney films, and of course I exaggerate a bit the expression.
Right.
So yeah, if you really want to bridge the gap between appeal and uncanniness, just make it more simple. That is basically it. Make it more marketable.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, and that makes sense to me. The fact that, if you lean into a more cartoonish style, it's less likely to set off those like flags inside our brains of, oh, there's something like left of center here. but at the same time, you kind of like leaning into that anyway. So there's like a bit of a push and pull there.
I feel like that's not the only way to do it, really, because spoilers for Animal Kingdom or Le Reine Animal, which you don't like how I said that. The the fucking bear that shows up, you can see that her face is still kind of human.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool how the features are blended, because you could tell that's not a normal bear, but the face has like the remaining features and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's off-putting. I think it's very interesting. Maybe it might even be a little frightening, like, oh my god, what became of this human? But yeah, I that's a good example of taking realism to that and it making it not look fucking ugly and unsettling.
Yeah, that's indeed true. Then again, maybe context also matters. In the context of the film, basically, Emil finds his mother. Basically, that was the context of the film, and that was, I think it was, if I remember watching this film, it was seen as an endearing moment. He finally find his mother, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
they never
right.
confirm it, but yeah, and I do think it is an endearing moment, honestly. Leaning into the sort of creepy element completely makes sense to me. I do wonder, though, like, have you had, like, what has the audience response been broadly to a lot of your Demi stuff? Like, have you ever felt dissuaded or disillusioned with creating those kinds of transformations, or has the response from your audience generally been very positive?
Well, the audience's response has been generally positive.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly positive, but sometimes there are comments like, it's creepy but in a good way, or it's freaky but it's nice. Or one of the comments that I got from, let me check my gallery, there's a comment from this post, the one which is a Demi Sphinx, basically.
I see, yes.
And one of the things is, it's a contrast of, wow, it's an uncanny character, but weirdly handsome. So there's always a kind of, on my FA comments, for example, there's always that duality of, that's creepy, that's uncanny, and that's handsome, or it's adorable. But sometimes there are comments that are, oh my god, that's hot, or your gallery makes me horny, and I'm like, oh. For example, on Twitter, there's some characters who think that my characters are hot, and I'm like, I don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
I ignore normally but sometimes it gives me a reflection of, am I into this? But no, technically I'm not into this. I just love the idea and the narrative idea of despite being too monstrous, they're still themselves, or it's still them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there are comments like this that comes with, when I do Demi TF, there's sometimes another one which I did a fish TF before, and one of those comments is, they find the skin under the skull hot, and I'm like, is this the kind of audience that I want to enable or not? Because the conflict is, I am not an NSFW artist, I'm not comfortable with it, being one. I respect the people who do NSFW art, but personally, I'm not into it personally. I'm not going to do one personally, so, or maybe I have a confusion between something that is hot in that handsome and hot in the horny sense. So maybe when I get comments of kink posting, basically, I get like confusion.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, everyone comes at this from a different angle, and if you just say that's hot on the internet, it's not like you're being given the context of how they're coming at it. And I know we'll get to like some of the parasociality stuff a bit later in the episode, but I can see why that would become uncomfortable, because like you said, you have one intention when you put the image out there, and you're getting very conflicting responses in return, essentially.
Yeah, it doesn't help that there's new genres of... When it comes to Demi TF, feral NSWTF is one that is mostly common. For example, there's a... I'm not going to throw shades, they're nice artists, it's just something I observed. There's sometimes artists who do feral, Demi TF, but their dicks are human, and I'm like, okay. Or there's sometimes NSFW artists who do a lot of Demi TF but very NSFW one, or what they show their dick with their D.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes I feel like regretting, as if, first of all, Demi TF was not something, when I did the hybrid Demi TF. I didn't call it Demi TF. I call it hybrid.
Right.
So sometimes it feels as if, sometimes I feel like, did I contribute to? I mean, it's okay if people like it, but it feels like, did I influence the TF fandom when it comes to Demi TF, or did I cause something or anything of this? Because when I did Demi TF and said the word, sometimes I predicted they're going to make an SFW Demi TF because there's always an SFW, and sometimes sometimes I say I was right because I see it, but sometimes I concluded of there's always an SFW of every TF, so I try not to. I don't try. I'm not that bothered. I just try to. I don't try.
Yeah,
I don't try. I don't put that much attention.
Mm-hmm. If I can distill it again, it's kind of like, you wonder if you fueled like an NSFW content with the stuff that you posted, which wasn't your intention necessarily. You don't have a problem with it, but you do wonder. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, exactly. Because I have friends who do Demi TF. I know artists who do this. Well, I know of friends who do Demi TF. Sometimes I'm like, that's it. Sometimes that's what it feels because I lost my brain. I lost my thoughts. Sorry.
You're good.
So the way I see it is, you're not alone. Even when I'm making something, even though I make a lot of porn, I also don't really appreciate it sometimes when people come at me with the kind of comments of like, "Ooh, yeah, like that's hot" or something like that, because that's not really the point of the image, Or somebody will take something that I have done and just kind of apply some kind of scenario or a tone that I don't really intend for, or they take something too far. And really, that's just something that happens with a ton of stuff. And because you're in a space that is like either really like very sexual or at least very sex positive, where people are used to looking at characters that are anthropomorphic or sometimes like monsters or monstery and stuff like that, and they'll be like, "Ooh, yeah, I like that." And also, people don't really know how to say that kind of stuff without coming off as awkward most of the time. I tend not to do that to not make that kind of comments unless it seems very clear. Like, oh, this image is presenting as something like sexually charged or something. Like, oh yeah, that's hot stuff. I'll say it like that. But instead of being like, oh yeah, oh, I would just, I hate it when people do that. And I hate it when people, I kind of hate it when people do that to me too. But it really depends. And I understand that with what you make, you're not making it for that. So when people come at you with the thirsty posting and stuff, you're just wondering like, oh my God, I didn't want this, but that's what they fucking do. They do this kind of stuff a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be off-putting, and I'm very sure that attitude has exhausted a number of artists and driven them away. I've said this kind of stuff before. Isn't that interesting?
I see. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
also
just
coming back for continue.
No, go ahead.
Also coming back to the question that Zil has said, if you feel like you have fueled the NSFW part of Demi TF. I thought of this because sometimes artists, they do one thing, they do one idea, and then that idea gets spread over because the TF community is small. I mean, compared to other art communities, the TF community is basically a niche within another niche. So maybe those ideas spread like wildfire. So that was my thought process of maybe if I contributed indirectly into spreading more NSFW, something that I don't want to be personally associated with.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. And I think, as you said, I remember when hoop TFs really popped off, one person just started doing them and then it was everywhere, regardless of whatever context the original artist wanted it to be in. So yeah, I think that point of ideas spread like wildfire is very accurate in general with the TF community, and can happen in so many different ways and in so many different contexts.
I would try not to overthink it because Pokemon has so much fucking porn.
Oh my God,
it's
yeah.
Pokemon. It's Pokemon. It's Pokemon. And they took it and they sexualized it, and that was really not the point. After a while, though, I'm really sure they just started to make some horny bait, though.
Yeah.
I have an argument to make for that. I made it with Zil. But for real, though, I think it's not really something that's something to mull over too much. Honestly, since you're not the only one doing it, maybe you are sort of feeding into it. But it's hard to control what people get out of things once you release it, because even when I put out stuff, people have wanted more of certain things from me, or have assumed that I like particular things or themes that I actually don't. And it doesn't really matter how I try to steer some things or describe. They'll just think what they want. So the one thing I can say, though, is if you don't want to feed into it, you're easily not doing it by not making the stuff that you don't want to make. Some people will make it. They can make it on their own. But that's not your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly what I thought. Actually, there's another way of thinking. If for example, someone does if it wasn't me who does this, maybe someone else would do it, because my hypothesis is the idea of stock bit form of Demi TF, it was already an idea before I was doing it. It's just that maybe it takes one or two, a group of artists, and they started, it's a background idea in their head, and it just needed an external visual, an external result, and they can get motivated into expressing the same idea. So that is another thought process. That way, I do this thought process to avoid the feeling of being one person contributing the entirety of a genre, which obviously doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You're not. You're definitely not just some kind of huge nexus for where it spreads out from. It's fine, because really, I don't want to stay on the topic too much longer, but I'll just put it this way: the stuff I make could be associated with a bunch of stuff I do not like at all, that I actually think is really fucked up or gross or whatever to me, and that is something that I manage the best that I can, but I know exactly what I'm making and why I make it. And at the very least, when people, if there's anybody who asks me or approaches me about something and they come at it with an angle that I didn't intend to, I could just straight up tell them, no, that's not it. So you're good. You're not doing anything that you don't want to, and that's really the best thing.
Yeah. Just I want to preface, for anyone listening, if you like NSFW Demi TF, it's fine. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't listen to me.
Well, I did want to...
Just don't be ashamed of... If you like NSFW Demi TF art, that's fine. That's fantastic. Don't worry about it. It's just my personal taste. For me, I'm not liking it. If you like it, that's fine. That is for everyone listening when listening. Also to avoid out of context issues. Anyway, that's all.
I wanted to chat a little bit about the animations for the podcast. In particular, you'd really generously kind of helped make a promo video of sorts, in a weird way, of animating some of our past moments on the podcast, and really giving them a flavor and an oomph to them that I think they really needed. So I was curious to just understand a bit more as to what kind of brought that idea on in the first place, and then how you went about doing so in the first place.
How did, for going from a joke to making 3 minutes worth of animation? Oh my god. Okay. How can I say? It all started with I just wanted to make a one-time thing. I wanted to do animatics. I love doing... I want to do animatics. I needed to, because... And sometimes... Originally, I wanted to just make a TFTuesday Podcast TFTuesday Podcast, but the context TF into Pultoy and deflated. It's an out-of-context style video on YouTube. And one of my favorite episodes is episode 69. And I wanted to, for example, make the animatic for Alien Penis. You know this one?
Yes. Very
the
well.
One where Zil is drunk. That is my favorite. One of my favorite pushes, and I saw that you love it. It was pinned on the server, and then I thought, okay, that's cool. And then I did I wanted to experiment with do animation, and because I'm using a software that I'm going to talk about it, that opportunities there is because I have a trial version and opportunities. So I wanted to do an animation in the style of puppet animation, and I wanted to animate one of my favorite parts of the Uno Reverse episode of Zil, where Zil talked about one section about, you know, an artist who's drawing a picture of, look at this new, people like this new devolve form. The devolve animation, I like it because I don't know if I can say it. I had this kind of comment on an art as well.
It was related to you,
so
yeah.
I was like, it was spoilers. It was related to me. So I don't know if it's going to be cut, but I am the person featured in this, and that was my favorite part. And it was very fun because it gave me, for this process, it gave me how to do animation. It gave me how to do puppets. It gave me some kind of, it gave me the signal that I am capable to do other animations, and then you like it. People on the server on the Patreon cult like it, and then I wanted to make another one, then another one, then I make the one with the cult, and then people like it. It's like you do one thing, you like it, and it becomes a habit. And then you start to do more and more, and
yeah,
it ends up doing a trailer for the podcast, which I am very surprised that it's a thing to begin with.
No, that makes sense. I
So
was
yeah, that's
curious
the
how you
origin story
actually...
for the.
Oh.
Continue.
Sorry, I think there is a bit of a lag. What I was just gonna say was that yeah, I really loved when it cropped up, and I think one of the biggest questions that kind of came into my mind is to how you settled on the animation style, because as you said earlier, it's kind of like a two puppet animation style, and so I was curious as to why you settled on that one in particular.
Well, the shortest version is I wanted something that is easier to animate. I like to give you, for example, two styles. I wanted to give you. I want to give you an example of what I mean. It's going to process. It's going to be processed on the recording, but basically I wanted something that is easy to animate. And the puppets, I want to first explain the style of the animation. It is puppet animation, or 2D puppet animation, where every piece is basically as you can move it like stop motion. Think of shows like South Park, or games like Paper Mario,
Right.
or is there another game, or the Tales of Prince Agman, the oldest shadow puppet film. And basically, where is it? If you look at the picture with K-Libra and Zil together, it has a more realistic art style, and at first I just wanted originally something. The idea is it's going to have the same background with Zil and K-Libra, and they're talking, and then there is the more puppety art style, which is more flat, with the more expressive chibi style. It is for telling the narrative stories of how K-Libra and Zil are saying. And then I started to love the more chibi cut-out paper style, and I wanted to stay with this art style because, first, it's easy to animate. It's just, for example, it's just a bunch of squares and circles. So that way I don't have to spend too much time because I'm not a studio.
Yeah.
I'm one person. And also it gives me more creative ways to create character designs. My favorite, for example, is K-Libra's chibi form for this one, because doing the frills is hard, because it is basically a flap of a flap of skin that is like hair.
Yeah.
So I need to find a way to first make it simple and also easy to look at. So I wanted to exaggerate and make it look like a triangle. And the difficulty for doing the Lombax Zil art style, chibi art style, is making something round, because I imagine, for example, the animated version of K-Libra as being sharp, or more. I'm not going to say more like
Angular,
stern, or angular, and more sometimes angry, because I realized that many of the animations that I did with K-Libra is mostly him being frustrated, whether it be the What Happens After episode or the I Come episode, or getting money, and the mini Zil mostly being the soft one, being afraid of the ants part in Animorph, so I wanted to express this one. So yeah, those are the difficulties for the designs. And on the technical aspect, one of the difficulties is recording the episode.
Right.
I use OBS to record the part of the episode, edit it to make sure that I just want the part that I want, and put it on a software called Toon Boom Harmony, which is the thing that I use to animate. Right. I'm going to show you a screenshot of one of the interface. It's processing. So yeah, you see it. It has a timeline. It has my puppet, my original sketch, and the OG design. And there it is.
Ah, yes, I can tell now. That's really interesting. I can see the difference in the detailing and how you've simplified a lot of the shapes, like you said, into more like just simple like rectangles and circles versus some of the more details in the complicated version.
The earlier version, basically the earlier versions.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually look more like puppets because they are all segmented and stuff like that. But the advantage to that is not trying to worry about making everything look smooth or like it's supposed to come together in one form. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because if you work with that kind of style, if you can do fun things for expression, because you could like play with the segments if you really want to be more abstract or outlandish and things like that, just for extra expression, especially if you like the whole like toony sort of thing, but it works. Both of them really work, and the new style is also very charming.
Also, what I love about the art style is that I could get away with NSFW topics. One of my favorite thing with the I Come one is that I could get away with saying NSFW topics without showing the NSFW visuals.
Right. And the cartoonish kind of version helped.
Exactly.
And my anger is cartoonish.
Exactly. I mean, in the style of the animation.
Yes.
The only disadvantage,
people laugh when I get angry. It happens a lot. I had to really take a lot of time to get used to people laughing and knowing why they're laughing and not always taking it deep, because yes, I understand, because I laugh when people get pissed off sometimes, but I seem to really make people laugh when I get pissed off, especially about pettier shit. Sometimes when I get really mean, when I say shit that I won't say on this podcast, maybe later though. It's just, I don't know. People being pissed off is kind of funny. So I guess I make people laugh like that sometimes. Hopefully people can take me seriously when I actually mean something and not tell me that I need to use less swear words, even though, fuck you people.
Look, anger is a valid emotion, and being pissed off is a valid emotion. So being pissed off is valid.
Yes, it is.
The only challenges the challenge for doing the animation, first, is finding the time. Because I work for the majority of the time doing the episodes, the animations, I was working a full-time job, and I had to take pockets of my time to do those. So again, it's mostly how can I make this animation simpler to avoid doing this in all night, because one of those animations I do it and I finish at 4 a.m. like all night just doing one animation, and it was not healthy.
Yeah. And
another one is the price. Toon Boom Harmony is a monthly subscription, and I like to for you to guess the price per month in Canadian dollars.
Oh jeez.
Guess. Really guess.
80.
200.
200.
Oh, I did
no
it
per
month.
Fucking way.
I got it right on.
If I include, yes, if you include the taxes, these are $200 per month. I do this because I had the money, because I had the. Exactly, that is the biggest disadvantage of doing the TFTuesday Podcast animations. Well, the challenges is money. It's $200 per month. And you know what's something funnier? For an animation software professional, this is cheap. Maya, the 3 animation that is used for 3 animations, $300 per month. If you're not indie.
That's insane.
If I'm correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's why people use Blender, because it's easier. It's free. Blender is free. Or Clip Studio Paint, because they don't have to pay a subscription of $200 per month for the version that I use. So sometimes I could change the art style medium to adapt to a cheaper software like Clip Studio Paint, or downgrade the version. So exactly, if money is more problematic, I'm going to change the art style. Well, I'm going to change the animation art style for something more snappy, like an animatic. So yeah, sorry for the surprises.
No, that's totally okay. I can't believe that the software costs that much. That's crazy to me. Having no context on like past stuff, that's crazy to me, you know?
I would say that art programs are nickel and diming us, but that's more like tens and hunderdsing us. What the fuck, guys?
Seriously.
No wonder they say you really want us to make shit and never stop paying you for the privilege of making shit so you can replace. Oh god, I hate you people so fucking much.
That's what I remember when I'm looking at the invoice, and that was during after 2020, because before that it was like $180 per month, which is $20 cheaper, but it's still a lot, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But the advantage of this software is time, which is something that I don't have, and you can make them quicker. But yeah, because I have a full-time job, but it gives me money. It gives me they call this a yearly salary. Well, so it gives me enough money at least to, at least normally, so I don't have that huge pressure compared to maybe some people. So I am kind of lucky for me to do these animations, because maybe in another timeline I couldn't do them because of the price.
Oh, so what you're saying is like you have the price kind of covered through your job, or?
No, I have the money. That's all. I have the money.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
I have a monthly. I don't know how you say this, but we call it salary or something like this. Wages or salary. I have a
stipend.
Stipend. I think that's the right word. Yeah.
I'm stable for now. For now, I'm stable. But if I'm not unstable, I have to change everything.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And look, I mean, it was beyond my wildest dreams when this stuff popped up, so I don't think we would ever want you to be putting in something you couldn't just to have these animations, although we obviously greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, by all means, we don't take any of this for granted. I love looking at it. It's so cool to see our voices being represented that way, and to see little tidbits that we have kind of immortalized in a fun way.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. I love it, and I'm grateful for it. And where's the rest of our animation and fan art, guys? Come on.
I think one of my favorite things also is that we've gone to immortalize some of the best expressions as stickers now, because we get a lot of mileage out of them, I will say. It's great.
Also, a good thing for doing those TFTuesday podcast is when it comes to TF animation, there's a lot of people doing TF animation, people turning into creatures, but there aren't, there are not a lot of animations that is about the idea of TF. So think of things like Jaden, YouTubers like animated storytime channels like Jaden Animation, The Odd Ones Out, Illimation. They talk about stuff, but it's animated. And I wanted to try something similar. And I like TF. I like the TFTuesday podcast. So I thought, why not combine the both? And there it is. Because there isn't a lot of... First of all, there isn't a lot of animation stuff in TF community to begin with. So it's always nice to see one.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I'm sure part of the problem is A, the time that is required to make one, and B, the cost of some of these programs. So it makes a lot of sense now, to me at least, that there's not as much as maybe we might have expected there to be otherwise.
I mean, you can still use Clip Studio Paint or Krita, or if you're submitted to Adobe Animate, but still.
Yeah, even
So
then.
there are other ways. It's just that animation takes time. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of time.
No, it
So there's
absolutely
the issue.
does.
Hmm.
Oh, awesome. Well, I did also want to chat a little bit about your experience in, like the 3D medium outside of creating these animations, because I know that one of the things that you have done for a number of different pieces that you've shown online is actually 3D modeling. So, I remember, for example, I believe there was a dragon head that you had done art for and then did a 3D model for as well. And that sort of 3D modeling has come up a few times in your gallery. And I imagine that is somewhat related to some of your work outside of the TF community. But I was curious to hear a little bit more about what the appeal is to kind of having that integration with 3D and transformation themes.
Well, remember when I said what I like about for example, Demi TF art or Werecreatures is the emphasis on the skin and how much human features can you mix
Yes.
with the animal shape.
Yes.
Imagine these appeals, but crank it into 800 times. Imagine the appeal exaggerated. Because the good thing for me for doing those 3 art, you can put more details into those models. You
Mm-hmm.
can put more, if you want to make the pores, you can make the pores. Do you want, is there like some acne or some freckles in in the skin? You can add them. Is there, for example, some details like how flat is the nose? You can do this
Right.
easily. And do you want to make the details of the line between that connects the nose from the mouth? You can do this, and you can have different angles, so you can not only see the TF of the demi form in as is, but you can, for example, turn it around. So that is one good appeal of TF and 3D animation or
Right.
3D art. Also, I like looking at textures. Sometimes looking at the skin deformed is sometimes that I find it very interesting because I think I've said again, I kind of find it, it's uncanny, but to me it's interesting to see, because 3D is something that it tries to be real, so it's like, imagine like Photomandep trying to do realistic things like White Flame K's artwork.
Right.
It's trying to do something uncanny and realistic at the same time.
Yes, it depends on the medium. Thanks to all the things that you can do with 3D art now, you can express a million different styles. You can make something that looks completely 2D and have it be a 3D character. My favorite example of that is Guilty Gear Xrd or Zerd. Supposed to say it that way. Whatever. Guilty Gear X3, technically. That game, if you look at it, if you look at it on its face, it looks like these lovingly drawn and animated 2D characters fighting on screen, but they're 3D. So when they do like a really dynamic move and the camera does like some, cool zooms and turns and stuff like that, you're like, "Oh my god, it's not a flat character." So it's cool that you can do 3D, but it doesn't really have to come out to being the sort of, for lack of a better term, glossy sort of look, or trying to make it look more matte, like you're trying to create people. You could go really far and wide with 3D now. And so if you want to do like Demi stuff, it is cool to see it with, like, for example, some of the stuff you're showing here, like the Hercules beetle dude on the turntable. Like, that's really cool to see. But you can actually make it look kind of like a drawing that you're turning around too, if you really cared enough. And that's so awesome that you even have the option to do it. And so you combine that with your experiments with the Demi stuff, and you can have some really fantastic
Yeah.
results.
Yeah, indeed. And again, not a lot of people do Demi TF and 3D animation at the same time. So again, 3D work and model on furry stuff, it's rare to see. Unless you go into unless you find, like, for example, on DeviantArt there used to be a giant amount of TF 3D art, but it's like, I think I remember it's like a deer TF with women turning into deers or something.
Mm-hmm.
The rendering looks like it came from Final Fantasy VII. It came like from an early PS1 cutscene.
Right.
So that's so maybe so
Yeah.
those kind of things they were very common on my DeviantArt formative age, but also on YouTube. There is a YouTuber called Medu, who before they used to do werewolf TFs.
Why does that name seem
It
familiar?
does seem familiar.
This was one of my formative TF art for doing 3D, and again, if you look at some of the scenes, there is shots. There is like again, we can see that the shape is forming, but the skin is not
Right.
TF'd.
Yeah.
So that is maybe one part of the puzzle of why I like Demi TF and also 3D art.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Like, it's funny because there's an infamous transformation scene at the start of Parasite Eve 2
Yep.
because it's supposed to be like really scary, and the texture doesn't really change from human skin at all, so it makes it more unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a common starter enemy for the game. Although the reason I say it's infamous is because they try to blend in the sound of a horse whinny, and people can't seem to get past that. So they're just like, "That's a horse." But the whole thing is supposed to be really freaky. But
Oh yeah.
that stuck with me. Haha.
Well, I'm glad that it stuck with you. I didn't play the game. I listened to some of the music, but I didn't see the cutscene for now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
maybe when I'll eventually see it.
Maybe in time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the second game though. It's not as good. Whatever.
Anything else to know about 3D before, or is there everything you want to know?
Yeah, I guess like when it comes to the actual like process itself, like how do you go about planning creating one? Like what do you do to like create the initial model, and how do you then kind of create the in-between stage, so to speak, that you really like to focus on?
Well, here's the thing. When I do my weird creatures in 3D, already I don't do a human before and after. I just do like the in between as is, and I treat it as a Demi TF. But that is the preface. But now for the process itself, I normally do sketches in 2D. Then it's mostly ideas and concepts, like I've shown in for.
Yeah.
And then I do the sketches, and I do a 3D sculpt on ZBrush. It's a 3D software that does digital sculpt. And then when I'm satisfied with the sculpt, which is a turnaround, I import it into Blender, and I do the thing called retopologizing. Because context, when you use ZBrush or sculpt, you're mostly managing millions of polygons. So for making models and rigs, for moving stuff, you need to optimize the model to make it easier for the computer. And then you do, the rigging process. After the model has been retopologized, which is optimizing and reducing the amount of polygons, you make what is called a rig, which is basically a skeleton. Think of things like VRChat or another one, Resonite?
Resonite, yeah.
Exactly. And for the textures, I mostly use a software called 3D Code Textura, which is mostly, imagine if your character, your 3D model, is been its skin has been removed, and you put it into a flat surface and you paint it. This is the texturing part, and then you basically make the textures, and that's where I do the human skin in the first layer. Then I do the creature part that is going to get TF'd.
Right.
And then
Right.
after that, I put it on Blender, and then I put some lighting, and boom, my model is done, and that's how it is. Sometimes if I want to do animations, I do sometimes.
That's
For
real
example,
cool.
on the recording chat, I put a werewolf creature, and I put some concept arts to show what I wanted to look like,
I
and
see.
it gave me some information to how it would look. It's a 3D image, by the way. It looks 2D. It looks painted, but it's
No, I can see it's 3D.
a 2D. It's a 3D
Yeah.
image.
Yeah.
I can tell. It's got a great look, and it's like I just said a few minutes ago. Games can just make it look like there's just a drawing until you see the camera turn. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and I think you do great with it. You did mention how there aren't many artists who do like both the 3D and the drawing and the other thing and the animation. And yes, there are some creative types who just dip into a bunch of things. Sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes the things seem to be more related, like you making 3D models and animations and things like that. Those things and drawing, those things all can tie together because they can feed one another. And some people just they'll just do like a ton of stuff. Like I have my share of model building, and then also there's like a pessimist who made me one of the best gifts I ever got in my life, which is she took a black long sleeve shirt and bleach painted an image of my Sona onto it, and it looks awesome. And it's like, I had no idea she could do this shit, but I guess she just did because she wanted to. Yeah, people just do the things that they want to do. I love it when people do that sort of thing, and it's the kind of thing that I want to break into doing more of. But it's just like really frustrating sometimes because it's like, where do you begin? Such fields, you can see the greatest examples up front, and you have no idea how to get there. Same for animation, because I do want to animate, but I don't know how to navigate it in a satisfying way, and it just makes me really makes me kind of stressed out.
I'm not going to blame you. Animation. Sometimes I wonder how is it possible that I am not having trouble with animation as well, because sometimes my first people said I'm talented, but I'm like, it took me years of practice to be there. And when I look at my art, I cringe. When I look at my older animation, I cringe. When I look at the art that people like, I sometimes cringe because how are people liking it? I look at the flaws. So sometimes when someone says someone is talented, they think that there is an eye that they have, but I didn't really. I think I had to practice. Like I said, I think so.
And I think that's fair.
I've been technically doing animation I've been starting to do animations since 2017, so it's almost 8 years basically. So, and I've been doing art since 10 years ago. So there's that as well. It takes years.
Yeah, you have a lot of experience, and you've been able to just kind of tie things up and make them work together. And also, animation just maybe it was taught to you in a more effective way, because for me it just hasn't clicked, and I just don't know what's not clicking. But I don't want to get too much into that. All I'm saying is, it's cool when creative types like to explore a bunch of different things and a bunch of different creative things rather than stick to the one thing, because you never know what could enrich the thing that you started with, or if you want to migrate to another, or if this one thing you want to migrate to but also helps with. Yeah, it's just there's just a bunch of things. It's worth exploring other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, indeed. Exactly. Basically, don't be afraid of doing multiple stuff.
Yep.
I tried photomatic once and people like it, but maybe I could do better. If I practice a bit more, I could improve. So that happens.
Yeah, if you want.
Oh yeah.
Well, I wanted to make sure we had time for the last topic here. And this one was actually one that was voted on by our patrons that I felt was a really good one to formulate some discussion. And it has to do a little bit with Parasociality, our favorite quote from the Sonic series. And in particular, how we kind of set up our boundaries between artists and the audience as well. And so I know you have kind of a unique position in terms of having two separate audiences, or almost three in a way, and very different kinds of art output, TF art and non-TF art. So I guess to start, how do you go about maintaining those two audiences? And how do you kind of manage a fear that I think you've expressed before in terms of, oh, what if I'm only known for my TF art?
Well, normally, when I started doing TF art at first, I mostly just ignore. At first, when I started to do TF art, I only posted barely. When I started in 2017, I just posted one art done for Affinity. Then there's a gap, 1 month or maybe 2, and then I was mostly focusing on my non-TF art, basically my normal persona. So basically, I just post the art that is not TF art. The art that is on TF art, it stays on the TF for Affinity accounts or Twitter TF. The non-TF, it can be on my TF account and on my non-TF account. The rule is a TF account, not on my non-TF account. It's mostly the advantage is because my non-TF persona identity is Instagram, and there isn't such a strong TF fan base there. So it's hard to see, for example, people who are furries who do TF art on FA, and sometimes they do post their TF art on Instagram. So I was able to maintain it because I was mostly just posting whatever I thought. Like I was like putting apples on different caskets or baskets. So I was mostly just putting stuff whatever I can. And when I started to explode, when I started to get more known about my TF art, I was mostly then I started to it's going to be hard to explain, or a bit hard to admit it. I kind of like the attention that I got from my TF art, because before that I had a DeviantArt account that is non-TF related, and I didn't get that much attention. I didn't get that much interaction. I didn't get to, and then when I been on For Affinity, I saw people that I used to be lurking and I used to like, and they talked to me, they interacted, and I thought, oh my god, I felt like I kind of belong. But it's like being an alt account, so it's like it feels like I'm still need to be respect the balance, and I still need to maintain my non-persona, because that's where I am, that's where people live, and then after that I kind of neglected my non-TF art for a while, until very recently, and the fear of, and that's where I wanted, for example, to show non-TF art on my Twitter TF persona, on my like the blue account or on my FA, and sometimes they just don't get as much attention, because that's where I realized that I've been stuck on a mold. I was mostly known as the one who does Demi TF art, and the tipping point is sometimes there was servers that I've been, and sometimes they say, when they post my art because they repost it, and some people say, oh, it's the person who does mostly TFs, Demi TF stuff, or all those comments. It was something similar that I did on my non-TF world. Because of my non-TF world, I used to draw a lot of anthro TF art. Anthro art. And when I was in school, when I was in college, there was one comment that is, it is an animation task. It is an exercise. And one of those, you have three options. You need to animate humans, you need to animate some cartoon animal, and then you have to animate like an anthropomorphic owl creature. And then I chose, I want the one with the owls. And there was one person who says, oh, of course you would. Which I thought it was something, oh, that's funny. Until I talked to someone else, first they told me that it was rude for that person to say that, and I explained that, hey, it was just maybe I didn't know that, but maybe he didn't mean to put me on the mold. So yeah, that's where I realized that I started to be into fitting molds, and I tend to stagnate because of this. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until recently where I started to maintain the balance. I put, for example, non-TF art. I started to upload on my non-TF account, non-TF stuff. Sometimes I put my memes up there, and I started to talk with non-normie people, basically.
Right.
Do you have some
It's
clarifications?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, it sounds like, at least in terms of how you relate to your audiences broadly, you kind of, I mean, obviously it was an interest already, but when you entered transformation art online, it was in part because you were hoping to get more noticed. But then once you had gotten that sort of attention, it was a very specific kind of transformation that you were really only being known for. And so now, there's kind of that concern of getting boxed in, especially when you want to create other things. So I guess the question I have is, beyond potentially overstaying the 7-day limit, it sounds like you're kind of trying to find a way back to an area in which you can create the art that you want to make, without letting the burdens of the audience expectation weigh you down, but you also worry that perhaps it's all too baked in now?
It's because I think I have a. At first, I liked doing TF art, but then I still have a responsibility of developing my non-TF art skills. Basically, I have a career to maintain, so I cannot just mostly be on TF. I was able to get away with just doing TF art for a while, for years, because I had a job that was stable, and I could just get away. But the tipping point was when I was temporarily laid off, which means, oh god, I need to do non-TF art, I need to expand my portfolio, I need to talk to other people. So, yeah, and it's not that I don't stop caring about my audience. I like the people. Sometimes I like the people commenting or the people that I follow, but sometimes I need to focus on my non-TF side.
Yeah.
Get away sometimes on my sometimes like doing non-Demi TF sometimes is a refresher sometimes.
No, I think that makes sense to me.
Yes, absolutely. There's just more to people than the niche that they feed, and we've talked about this before, but it's worth talking about more than once because, as you said, you have other interests, but also as part of your job. And for the people who have their art intersecting indeed, for the people who have their art intersecting with the stuff that actually keeps them afloat, yeah, they got to be able to keep sharp and also just expand their perspective on what the hell it is that they need to do to stay noticed or stay employed or get ahead. So it's not the same for everybody. And also, I think it's just worth appreciating what it is that people can do, because I like what you can do and I like the range that you have, but it really wouldn't be there if it was people just, it wouldn't be there if you just obliged what your audience may want from you, which is, oh, draw more of this, or make more comics or sequences or stuff like that. You wouldn't really actually get anywhere, you know?
Actually, the fear of being put into a mold, and the fear of being stuck in a TF mold, I had that back in my mind, but it was mostly, I used to talk to a former TF artist. We're gonna call him E. E used to be a TF artist that does good professional level TF art. We used to be friends. We talked sometimes. Then we deleted the account, deleted their Fur Affinity persona, their TF stuff, and then when I recontacted E, they told me, I like doing TF art. It was very fun, but I don't want people to just define me by the TF. You know, that is something that kind of give me reflection, because I think it was E and I were like thinking of the similar stuff. I'm not very sure, but maybe it was something that I thought as well, you know. And also my Instagram non-TF account was basically neglected for 2 years, and I thought they were not going to miss me. But then I started re-uploading, and my non-TF the normie friends started to say, "Hey, welcome back. I like your stuff." So sometimes I try to mix some TF audience with normie audience. I sometimes put my weird creature art on my normie account on the context of this is a character design idea, and I put my TFTuesday Podcast animation in the context of this is an idea. I'm not into it, or I'm not. The intention is I do it for a animation exercises, or I like experimenting and all that. Because my audience, my normie account, directors and employers are following me, so there's that as well.
No, that makes sense. I guess it sounds like, at least in this case, and in, I guess, E's case, the kind of fear of those expectations and the almost parasociality of like expecting that kind of art always from you is what's kind of pushed you back towards trying to mix it up. And again, of course, prioritizing the things that are directly related to you making a living. Would you say that any of the I guess in the approach that you took, would you say that you've changed it now? Like, do you just post an image and then leave, and you don't really interact, or have you had to adjust anything to try and mitigate these kind of internal concerns that you've had?
I thought of, okay, well, I thought of two options in the future. The first one is I try to not close. I try not to be inside the TF closet, and sometimes I show my weird creature art on my normie accounts because I have shown so much stuff, and I need to show stuff for my portfolio, like not TF animation, weird creature animations and all that, because it may be weird creatures, maybe TF adjacent, but it's still normal work. That is one option. There was another option that I thought is no TF art for 1 month, or maybe some. I'm going to take what I like to call TF vacation, where I don't do TF art. I only focus on non-TF art. Like, for example, I wanted to draw creatures like dragons. I like to draw people. I like to draw inanimate stuff. I want to talk to my non-TF friends because they have stuff. They are also my IRL people friends. So I wanted to talk to them because they're living in the same province. So that was one extreme possibility. Or again, maybe I could do the substance technique, which is just 1 week you do TF art. Well, you can do TF art. 1 week you don't do TF art at all. Then you do another one, and that's where you see the substance references inspiring. But basically, you try to have a balance because so I can upload stuff without having the fear of one audience overshadowing the other. And that's it. That's my possibilities.
Would you say that because I know that all of us probably have gotten kind of comments where people are suggesting things we do, like, oh, what if you did like a female version of this TF, or like what if you did like this species of TF or anything. I'm sure we've all kind of gotten comments like that. Has that ever dissuaded you in any way, or has it actually inspired you to like go off and make any of the suggestions?
I mostly ignore some of the suggestions. There are the things that I would like to try. Maybe I put a maybe, but sometimes I just ignore some of the comments. Unless it's from friends or people that I know. Another friend wanted me to try one of those Mass Effect creature TFs, for example. Like, I don't remember the big alien one that looks like a frog. I don't remember.
Oh, basically the Solarians
or Krogans or something. They wanted me to try stuff that they like, and because they're a friend, well, I said maybe. I put a maybe, but normally those comments I ignore them because I have other stuff that I want to draw. But I put it into maybe comments. Right. Also, some of the comments, DMs from bots, but that's another story.
Yeah. I don't know. How have you handled that in the past, Libra?
Usually with frustration. There have been a few times where I've taken a suggestion, but it's very, let's see. If I've taken a suggestion, it's really because I just wanted to see if I could do it. And there have been a couple of times where I did it out of spite, but, I know it's just like, how do you spite somebody if you're giving them what they want? But, it's just like, yeah, fuck you. I'm doing it because I want to, and I think it's a good idea. You got lucky. And that's kind of what happens with some of the people who end up making those kind of comments to me. Usually, though, it comes off as really irritating because they'll tell me they'll think that, let me see. The framing of the question is, oh, like, maybe you would want to do this. It's like, I would have done it, but I didn't do that.
Right.
This is what it is. What I'm showing you here is what I wanted to do. Maybe you would want to do this. Maybe you would want to make it a sequence. Maybe you would want to add more titties or some shit like that. It's really irritating because it takes away from anything that you did, and it just feels like they're trying to coerce you into doing more for absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They're taking their shot in the dark of trying to get more content produced, not art, content, and they want to, and that's their way of doing it. That's how it comes off to me sometimes. I understand that not everybody does it, but I mean, I guess it also depends on, is it an artist doing it? Like OtherSide said a few minutes ago, there'll be artist friends who will mention, here, try this thing. You don't really like this thing, but it'll be good exercise for you. You know where they're coming from with it. They also might have a specific a specific challenge for you. Are you going to tackle a weakness? Are you going to explore a theme that you otherwise like haven't, just to expand your horizons? But I think a lot of people who just leave comments and just don't fucking know you, they don't have that in mind. They just, like, a lot of these people just want more from you. And I'm sure you gotten that kind of thing too, when you just finished toiling over a fucking photo manip, and then they're just like, man, it would have been nice if the skin was like greener. Like, thanks, dickhead.
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think for me, a lot of the times when I've gotten like a quasi negative comment, it's more like, wow, that's weird, and that's it. I find I don't get a lot of like, oh, you should have done it this way. Although I have definitely gotten a few that's like, wow, you should do X kind of species next time. Which,
Yes,
again,
exactly. That's the kind of shit I'm talking about. It's not even a negative comment. Just you should do this. Wow, the thing that you do, something whatever would look great. Or I think you would really love this character or this thing if you like that. It's like, get the fuck away from me.
yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure you've gotten plenty of that.
I have.
Of course.
I generally ignore them because, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, because so much of it is also like personal work, I'm kind of looking more for what I would like to become. And so oftentimes I'll just be like, well, this is what I want to do next. And I just kind of go from there. Or maybe I'm just looking for something to spark inspiration, but I'm not looking for someone to tell me, oh, hey, you should try X animal, because like I have to be inspired to create it. And if I'm not, it's highly unlikely you're going to inspire me with just a comment, I guess. So, you know.
I agree.
Exactly. It's frustrating when it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how clever some people think they are, but yeah. And I know this is ascribing some kind of malice, but I can't fucking help it sometimes, because there have been a few times in the beginning, in the earlier years, where I have entertained this kind of thinking or just try to get into a discussion, but they really get in. But you know, they started to get into things that they really were very interested in. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of why, in terms of parasociality, and I think this also fits, is when you're dealing with a client, and a lot of people do this, and if you're listening and you happen to commission me or whatever, oh my God, if I'm asking somebody what they want, but what they do is they turn the question on me and say like, well, what are you in the mood to draw? That actually doesn't help me. But that frustration aside, when it's a new client and they're trying to make real sure that it's something that I want to draw, that's very frustrating, because I'm not drawing for me when I'm getting paid for it. Otherwise, you should just give me some fucking money, man. So please tell me what you want to draw, because it also comes off as kind of manipulating. Mm-hmm. And I also say this because it has been confirmed to me with at least one or two clients that they're just really, really trying to get a specific thing out of me. And they just want to make sure that I make it again, but to their little tweaked ways.
Right.
And that's fucking manipulative, because I know that they're trying to leapfrog of something that I was inspired to, that I felt motivated to do, and just put it into something for them, which you can't do. Come on, man.
So I guess when you kind of answered it in terms of the commission's perspective, but have you ever had to like manage those boundaries and like have you had to like reinforce them a lot?
Me, yeah, a lot. I've had to do them several times, because some people won't back off. Some people will say things like, oh, they just want to make real sure, or, you know, oh, I don't know, and I'm not sure. It's just, okay, look, man, if you're hiring me to do a job for you, I need to know what you want, first of all.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to not know what it is you want to do, and you're wasting both of our time. The other thing is knowing that, and the other thing is just knowing when people seem to try to take whatever you make and then think, oh yeah, this would look great in your style, you know.
Yeah.
like draw this kind of fucking genitals, which is really just the animal stuff. And no, I know what you're looking for, but I don't want to do that. But you think it would look really good in my style, wouldn't you? Oh, just change it a little more. Make it 90% change. Get the fuck out of here.
Shit.
It's little things like that. I see them trying to skirt it, and I've had to look out for people who do that sort of shit, which is why I have tried to assert that if you are commissioning someone, then what you are trying to get from them is what they would do with the idea. Let them run with it, and if they have questions for you, answer the questions directly. I have said this before, but I will keep saying it because we have many episodes that you should listen to all of them and realize, hey, I've said this before. Like and subscribe, bitches.
Have you had to have a similar experience, OtherSide, with those kinds of reinforcing those boundaries?
When it comes for commissions?
Yeah.
So far I didn't had difficulties with examples of commissioners pushing my boundaries yet, but
Okay.
I have, for example, a rule on my terms of service, which is if you post NSFW art or comments on whatever is related to emails for commissions or PayPal, you will be banned for commissioning me. This is a very harsh rule in my terms of service, specifically because I rather lose my audience than losing my PayPal. So even if maybe it could be irrational, it is a harsh boundary. It is a harsh rule and boundary that I had to put. So this is my rule that that is the one rule that I need to be sure. And sometimes when I have commissioners who are friends, I remember, for example, one time I have a friend who I sometimes warn him, if it's NSFW, tell me that it's NSFW or blur it because I'm not comfortable with NSFW. So now that's how in the present time, whenever there is an NSFW stuff, that friend and commissioner, when it's not about commissions, when it's a friend, they warn me. You know, that is an example.
Right. Which they should, honestly.
I have heard NSFW so many times during this conversation that it's really beginning to lose meaning. I really hate that people have started to say that instead of porn. I even missed the term prawn. God, man, it's so much work to say. It's so many syllables.
That's nothing. There's worse.
I hear it. I'm just tired. It's like NSFW, like shit.
I mean, it's the most precise way because one person's not safe for work is not another person's porn.
There's another way of saying it.
Because that's not what the fucking it's a colloquialism for porn, and you fucking know it. Don't give me that fucking.
I'm technically correct, and that's the best kind of correct. Futurama told me that.
Not on this show, bitch.
Go ahead, OtherSide.
If you don't want to say NSFW, but you want to say porn without saying the P word, say corn. There.
Corn.
That is the better word. You're watching porn.
There's so much corn on the internet. It's true.
I'm
watching corn.
Euphemisms.
The corn looks like
euphemisms are the death of us.
Look, if you want, for example,
I hate it.
Look, Zil, if you want, for example,
yes.
another euphemism for the effing, instead of saying the effing, say the Union Act, the Canadian Union Act.
That's terrible.
God,
I hate it. It's sterile. It's sterile and lacks any kind of expression, and it insults the intelligence of the fucking audience.
It means it conforms
no,
I'm not actually.
I'm Canadian. Well, I'm not Canadian. I'm from Mexico, but I know the history of Canada, and the act, they call it in French l'acte d'union, which is uniting, and the F word, effing, means uniting, so there it is. Uniting, it's
fucking means a lot of things.
We've just given you a history lesson on Canada on this show.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry. Actually, I'm not. Lo siento. There.
Don't apologize if you're just gonna do it anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry for being sorry.
Stop it.
I know people are going to cancel me because I misrepresented the history of Canada.
No,
no one's even fucking cancel you. Please.
I do want to reel it back to the audience questions because we do have some audience questions that I want to make sure we have time to get through.
Back to, we're only getting to them now. I mean, that's the real correct thing to say.
Yes.
Which is not technically, it's just correct. See, on this show, we're just correct.
The first question we have is from Max Velocity. We're falling apart on the podcast. So this question is, we were all indirectly affected by the litter boxes in school urban legend. The TF community can be especially vulnerable to that sort of fear-mongering and misinformation. So what can we do to protect ourselves against the next viral hoax?
Wow. That is a big question. I'm glad we're eventually going to be a politics podcast or stream or both.
All art is political. But it's true.
I will lead this. Mm-hmm. I will lead this. The way you protect yourself is realizing that, one, who is constantly saying it? If it's the same conservative, Republican, dirtbag piece of shit on your feed, then don't listen to them. Or, if they happen to be correct, why exactly are they correct? And it's the version of do your own research where you do the actual research and find out why the fuck anybody is saying any of this. Because remember, there's truth buried to the whole litter box thing, and the truth is really fucking sad. See, they ended up trivializing it because for people that don't know about the litter box thing, it has to do with school shootings.
Yep.
And how in the event of a school shooting, if kids need to relieve themselves, there will be a litter box in the classroom so they don't have to leave and put themselves at greater risk. That is immensely fucked up. And these assholes turned it into kids are being weirdly gendered and I don't like the wokeness. Like, that is what they did. And it's disgusting, okay? So that's the way you protect yourselves. Know who's repeating this and then finding out where it really came from. And also, when you're trying to find out about things, check several news sources. You know, and if something has a conservative slant, really try to ignore it. Because 99% of the time, you know they're either going to have a bent, or they're going to lie, or they're going to downplay it. And that's kind of how you protect yourself. Being informed is the one thing that these people don't want. Just stay informed. And maybe just ask a few friends who are better kept close to the news there.
Yeah. I don't think I can top that. I agree completely with that answer, honestly.
Fuck these people. Fuck
I would
them
like
all.
to add, also don't be with people who are paranoid about rumors or are rumor mongering. So that is an extra step. Or actually, be with people who are not gullible enough to believe those rumors or those hoax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the problem with propaganda. Propaganda is a tool, and you can make actually good propaganda. I mean, and by good, I don't mean one that successfully manipulates. I'm talking about propaganda that actually can inform you. But since, many people have an agenda, you don't really see that kind of thing very often. So, I mean, if you're going to, if you're just gonna continue to protect yourself, just remember that there's lots of agendas and different things. So don't worry, we'll help protect. Don't worry, I will help the furries deal with stuff that comes out from the rest of their purview. Don't worry, these people are scary, but if you handle them a certain way, they're actually pathetic.
Yeah. Okay. The next question we have is from Professor Scritch, and the professor asks, has your interest in transformation, particularly if you're interested in becoming an animal yourself, influenced your perspective on the role of animals in society or the relationship between humans and other species?
So who wants to go first on this?
I'll try. I'll try to break the glass. Here's the thing. For me, it's a bit weird, but the TF didn't influence my perspective on the role of animal on society. Maybe I could say as a little twist, it's the reverse, actually. Maybe how my perspective on the role of animal in society kind of influenced me in doing TF. So maybe there's that. I don't know. I mean, for example, because if I try to answer the question directly, it didn't influence me a lot. I didn't see that much relation between TF and the relationship between animals, I kind of separate them the two. But sometimes I get inspired and I don't know. I see that, for example, someone riding a horse. So I said, oh, what if someone TF'd into a horse? You have a friend, and you TF your friend into a horse, and they go into an adventure or something. So that is one example. But there's that.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say as well, like, in terms of how it's influenced my own perspective, I would say that in terms of as I've learned more information about, I guess, animals in general, and particularly like species I might be interested in like transforming into as I'm like, working on stuff and learning more about not only their anatomical nuances, but also their behaviors. I think it does help to illustrate at least that, when it comes to the relationship between animals and humans, we often place ourselves above nature in a very anthropocentric manner. But then you see kind of the similarities in between animals and humans just from like an anatomical perspective and many of the shared behaviors. And it kind of reminds you, in my opinion, that we like to separate ourselves from nature, but that's not really true from a biological sense, nor even really from a societal expense. A lot of us are only a few wrong decisions away from, living outdoors and having to fend for ourselves. And so, I think that the othering of animals is a convenient way for us to sometimes feel comfortable and secure in our quote-unquote humanity, but we have a lot more in common with them than we would ever like to admit. And I think that that is something that I do come back to as a concept time and time again.
Yeah. It's interesting because we ascribe many different traits to we use animals to emphasize aspects of us, physical or otherwise, and I don't know, it's really convenient because of other animals are very specialized in so many different things. You can tell just by the way they're built, and that's going to give them certain kinds of reputations in the eyes of many. Also, what some of us really are endeared to are considered pests in other places. And I do agree with Zil that the othering of animals is something that makes us feel conveniently, just very conveniently at peace with a lot of things. Oh, we're in control and everything like that. But also remember, it's good to know that we're still animals. We're still part of all this shit. Doesn't matter how smart we are. You can pretend that the whole animal instincts thing is separate from you, or that only animals have instincts or some bullshit, which I've been told, unironically, humans don't have instincts. Please. It really makes me think how people will just typecast anything just to make things simpler. Like, I probably said this before. Well, maybe not in this context, but TF kind of makes me dislike donkeys. But if it wasn't for people who actually like donkeys that aren't just using it for horny fodder, I wouldn't realize how charming they are and how interesting they are, and that they're actually pretty cool. They can make for very sweet companions. They're protective, and they're actually smart. Donkeys are actually smart.
Yeah.
So the whole dumb donkey hee-haw thing, I think, is actually kind of fucked up for them, because it makes it seem like all they're good for is standing around and shitting in the dirt. But unless you like come around and you make them work or something, it's not nice. And those kind of things come from other people who really don't give a shit. Yeah. I think the TF community has shown me a lot of how people can be with animals, and sometimes there's a lack of empathy. Sometimes it's an obsession. Sometimes you just really, really like the thing. Like, I like frogs. I'm better than you. No, but really, it's just it can be kind of sad. but illuminating at times. Some people have a genuine interest that aren't just me, and they teach you fascinating things about these creatures that we share the world with. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that the community has opened me up to. And so now when I walk around and I see certain animals, I'm just like, damn, some people really like this about it, but is it true? Do people realize what they are like in person? Some of them do. There's definitely shifted my perspective on a lot of things.
It is nice.
Yeah. Well, we have a lighter question to follow after that, and that comes from Gilmartin Fitzpatrick. And the question is, what is your favorite seasonal or holiday TF trope? So, for example, Easter Bunny TF, turkeys for Thanksgiving, reindeer TF for Christmas, etc.
I think it counts if I say the Chinese New Year.
Yeah, I think that definitely counts.
I think those are fun because people get really creative with them, and there's just a bunch of art that's outside of the transformation space that I end up seeing that can make for some really lovely stuff, just fun. So I enjoy that stuff. That's probably my favorite. I think I kind of taken a liking to some of the reindeer stuff, but that's a recent thing. But yeah, I like the Chinese New Year stuff. And if I want to be really cheeky, I'll just say Wednesday is my favorite season. Yeah.
I will concur on the Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, with one caveat. Every time someone posts a Lunar New Year TF on January 1st, I want to jump out a window because that's not when the Lunar New Year is. So if y'all want to get in on that, please at least be respectful of the culture and post it when the Lunar New Year is actually happening. It happens every year and it drives me up the fucking wall. The other thing I'll mention outside of that, I do really enjoy a lot of the Halloween transformations. I mean, it's the TF month, as it were. But in particular, I love a good, TF caused by a costume and that kind of stuff. I think it's a scenario that's ripe for transformations that you can make a little bit more gnarly in the spirit of, horrific or what have you. But there's also a really wide range of options that you can have, so people can get quite creative with it as well.
Yep, I agree with that.
It's going to be complicated because I don't have Halloween, I don't have New Year, I have Dia de los Muertos. Do you know what this holiday is?
Tell the audience. Culture these people. Tell them.
Do you know what is an alebrije?
Let me see. Alebrije? No, I have never been. I've never been told about that stuff. Or I think I've seen it, but never really knew what it was. Please continue.
Basically, it's one of those. I look on Wikipedia. I look on Wikipedia to know what it is, and it's basically kind of a folklore creature that is a chimera. And in some films, like in Coco, like from the gift that I showed, they can sometimes be like if I remember correctly, they can be creatures that can bring the dead to the living or something like this, if I remember correctly. But what I like about this is that either they can be colorful, and that is something that I don't see that. I've never seen an alebrije TF. That is one idea. Or if you want another Dia de los Muertos themed TF, a skeleton TF, a human TFing into an skeleton anthro wolf, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
That is an example.
Okay. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think that you.
I had to look. I thought I had to look to be sure if it's appropriate or not, because it is something that I find it interesting. So there's that as well for the alebrije one.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sweet. Now I know what they're called, and I can look for more of it.
Yeah.
Also, Coco was a really good movie. It was really sweet. Got me all teary and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, I really like this film.
Uh,
Watch Coco, actually.
Yeah, watch Coco.
Watch Coco. And then we have a last question, which hilariously, I think, OtherSide, you may have mentioned you don't think you've seen people answer their own questions before. Well, we have a question from you, and the question is, what was the longest amount of time where you didn't do TF art, or when you tried to leave the TF fandom?
Oh my god, why are you doing this to me? Okay, it's 5 days.
5 days?
Or 5 days is the longest, if I remember. 5 days or 1 week, if I remember, is the longest amount of time recently that I didn't do TF art. because I was busy with the IRL stuff, like sometimes doing normal memes and doing animations about furries, like would you draw me meme or animatic about Fair Affinity staff,
Yeah.
for example. And so I was kind of busy for 5 days, or maybe 7, because I was actually busy with
Right.
other things. And the longest time that I wanted to get out of the TF community is 0.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm stuck. I'm basically
Bold.
stuck.
Okay. I mean, hey, I support it. I'm surprised that that's never been a thing on your mind. Well, I support it, and that's great. Well, I guess maybe this is my own like bias speaking. I guess I'll cut in here and just answer for myself. So like I have tried to leave the TF fandom before. It was a long time ago, to be clear. It was back in 2011, I believe. And I did actually I deleted everything in my gallery on Fur Affinity, and I pieced out for like 8 or 9 months. Now this wasn't fully my own decision. I had a bit of a personal situation in real life where someone was trying to use my art as kind of a cudgel against me. But regardless, I was like, yep, you know what? This is not worth it. I have better things to do with my life. I'm just going to dip. And then that lasted about 9 months, and then I came back because lo and behold, it was still very much on my mind, and I missed it because it was a good creative outlet. So all this to say, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people struggle with the kind of coming to terms with their interests, especially something that is often deemed to be shameful by like the greater public, and I think that weighs on us quite a bit. But all this to say, I'm happy that you haven't had to consider that. I would say at least the longest time that I didn't do TF art is I don't know. There's probably a year where I wasn't really doing much that was tacked on to those 9 months, so that probably would be the longest amount of time. I don't think I've gone longer than that, though.
That's really interesting. I had no idea. I actually don't know. I feel like when I started making it, I just kept making it. I don't really feel the need to leave. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'll ever be put in a situation where it would be wise if I do, but I never really felt like leaving. I think the closest thing to wanting that or possibly approaching that is going to have to come from me trying to pursue other things, which would arguably make me leave. But I mean, not really. You know, I want to create more things in general, and that involves shit that isn't people turning into stuff or porn revolving around that. So, hey, it's not really a thing for me to want to leave, even with all my gripes and everything. I mean, say what you want, but I still want to add what I make to the pool of art and media and stuff, because I got something that other people don't. There you go. So it's not exactly a clear-cut answer, but that's how it is with me right now.
Nice. Well, that was all the audience questions I had. I don't know, OtherSide, if you had any questions for us.
How many questions am I allowed to ask?
We'll start with 3.
Alright, it is my question for K-Libra and Zil. How are you able to make that many episodes of the TFTuesday podcast without losing your sanity?
That's a great question.
Take breaks.
How are you able to maintain...
We take breaks.
We take breaks. Also, bold of you to assume that I've never lost my sanity while making this show. That's a bold assumption. But no, in all honesty, what Libra said.
Yes, we can't keep doing this every single week, because there's a lot of other things going on. If this was a full-time job, it would be very easy to fill every single day with this show.
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of work that we would put into it, and there's already enough work put into it and enough questions, and yeah, that's if we could make a living out of this, which we can't. So change that.
Another question. How did you and K-Libra met?
Oh.
Like, what was the origin story of the duo?
Oh, That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
you
Zil.
go ahead. You go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, apparently we had a mutual friend, and this mutual friend started, started bringing Zil around more. But also, Zil was part of these monthly furry dinners that we would go to. I would go to them because they had a few people who were also into transformation. So, we had our opportunities to talk and everything like that. And it was fine. Both of us had our pleasant chats here and there. But I think we really sparked to being friends. I forget what year of Vernal Equinox. Which one was it?
Well, the first one we met at was at 2019. And then Vernal didn't happen until 2022. I think it was the 2022 one where, like, things, like, really kind of popped off.
Yeah. So after that, it was just like, oh, man, I can talk to you for, like, a good long fucking time. There's a lot of stuff that we agree on and a lot of interesting stuff that we don't share in common that we like to tell each other about. And we have a lot of ideas that we want to see through. This podcast is one of those things, for sure. But yeah, it went from that FE to like hanging out like another instances, like, hey, you want to come around to do this or just hang out or whatever. And it was just really easy to spend time with them. It still is. And before we knew it, we started to become really close friends. It's just like little things about the universe, because if anybody knows either of us, and then you start to find out like who the fuck it is the other's hanging out with, it's kind of like, wow, you two guys seem kind of fucking different. This is why I also enjoy the term and concept of gay brunch, which Zil has introduced me to, because when Zil and I go out, we don't look like we should be friends.
No.
And I think that's really great, and it's very entertaining. It's kind of like when I'm standing around in like a crowd of furries, and I'm like, man, I fucking hate furries. I fucking do this, I fucking do that. And Zill's just like, yeah. Instead of everybody else being like, oh, I guess. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm talking to you, not everyone.
Yeah.
Why do you have to fucking take it that way?
And just to further elaborate on the concept of gay brunch, the analogy comes from the idea that whenever you have a bunch of gays who go to brunch together, none of them dress similarly to one another, and therefore they do not look like they belong together. So I have ported that term over to what we look like when we go out. So
yeah, you'll wear like your Lombax hoodie and shit like that. I have a fucking cloak.
yeah,
it's just like, what are you guys doing? Actually, that's why the new art looks the way it does. It better reflects us. That's us.
That's
like
the reason,
we don't look like we belong together at all, and it's fun.
That's nice. It is nice.
All right.
And you
So
had a
we're
third
still on the
question.
hot seat.
I have no other questions now.
Okay.
I wanted to
Okay,
know the
well,
limit.
you stayed within it, which is great. You respected the limit. You remembered that you are one, and we love that for you. So,
Oh fuck! Oh my god! How many times? I wonder if they're going to make a. I wonder if someone is going to make a substance reference. The number of times that this film has been.
I think the person
referenced.
who's going to make that might end up being you.
Oh shit! Or imagine a drinking game where every time they mention the substance.
Well, you
get a
definitely
shot.
speed ran that at the end there. So,
Taking a shot. Substance
Hey, fuck
needles.
you!
well, it was really great to have you on OtherSide and to chat about all of these topics. If people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me. You can find me on my Fur Affinity account as the Other Side. It's the other line side, the Other Side. On Twitter, you can find me as the other side 666 Blue Sky Socials, and on Twitter or Twitter, it's like the blue, a commercial like the blue.
Hell yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Check this motherfucker's art out.
Yes.
It's great. If you haven't looked at the channel trailer because you're missing out, catch up. It's 2 minutes of great shit.
It's worth it.
Made by this individual right here.
Yeah.
Who's very skilled and cares a lot about what he's doing. And it's also fun. So yeah, check all the stuff out. And if it's something that you're not into, try.
Yeah, sample it. See the other side of the road, as it were.
Fun fact: the name Other Side was because it was actually an alt. My for Affinity account was originally an alt account. My burner account was only used so that I can watch people on For Affinity that were only accessible for people who have an account. That was my alt account. I'm an alt all along. It was an alt.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Other Side, and thank you everyone for listening. I hope that y'all had as much fun listening as we did recording it. And of course, in the meantime, I hope that everyone drinks the correct amount of water, gets 8 hours of sleep, and keeps an open mind and stays TFing. We'll see you back here again next week.
Yeah, remember, the darkness descends, but don't worry. There's enough light to keep going.
Cheers.
Take care of yourself.